We're live, ma'am.
We're live. Okay.
Yes.
It's still loading on my thing. I'll just mute it. Otherwise, I'll hear the echo. Yeah, now we're
Okay,
live.
ma'am.
Yeah, we can start.
I'll start now.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day, Mrs. Arwa Sabuwala. Arwa ma'am holds a master's in counseling psychology from the Indian Institute of Psychology and Research and brings 2 years of dedicated experience working with children. She currently works at Summit Psychological Services as a psychologist, where she conducts comprehensive intelligence, neuropsychological, and academic assessments. She also provides cognitive intervention services and offers phonological awareness interventions to support children's learning and development. Today, Arva Ma'am will be speaking on the very timely and important topic growing together, the role of family in the journey of neurodiversity, which is truly needed, uh, which is truly the need of the hour. We look forward to gaining valuable insights and practical strategies from her. We are very excited and grateful to have you here, Arva Ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Srividya ma'am, and thank you, participants, for joining in for the session. So I'll just share my screen now. Let me know if you can see it. All right. All right. So I hope my screen is visible. So welcome once again, everyone, and thank you for joining in the session. So today, as you can see that I'm going to talk about the role of family, more in terms of the journey of neurodiversity and talking more about how important the role of family is when it comes to catering to a neurodivergent children. But before we move forward and we speak more about that, I just wanted to let you all know that as an individual, of course, when we all grow up, we know how family plays an important role in every individual's life. And they are the support system, and they are the one whom every individual can count on, can rely on. So, as we see that times definitely have changed from what it was earlier and now what it is. Family dynamics have also changed, of course. The way every individual communicates with every member of the family, that would vary because there are different perspectives, different opinions in the house. So there could be various misunderstanding, miscommunication, and that is there. That is a part of life, and that's how probably every individual grows because when you understand the other person's perspective and you learn from them, is where you kind of inculcate that within yourself. But today, what we are going to be focusing more on about is the role of family for the neurodivergent children. Now, what is neurodivergent children and what other aspects or what are the roles of the family members in that? Let's move forward and try understanding that. So sorry, I think my slide is not moving. Just a second. All right. Okay, so always understand that when there is a neurodivergent child, uh, parenting for a neurodivergent child is challenging because there are various other demands that the child, throws, and you have to understand the child's needs in different ways. And if a child is different from the typical child, and are having challenges in terms of understanding, in terms of learning, or in just in general terms, way of handling day-to-day life. So when such a child is there, of course, in a family system, what plays a major role is how parents are catering to that child, how they are able to understand their needs. And since they are the immediate caregivers, it becomes very overwhelming for them as they are dealing with the child on a day-to-day basis. And since they themselves have a lot of other responsibilities, but at the same time, this is also the need of the hour is how to cater to a child who is having certain challenges, certain difficulties, and they are also in the journey, which is something new for them. Probably they wouldn't have come across this earlier, or when they grew up, they did not come across there could be different conditions in which the child can grow. So when this happens, of course, it becomes very overwhelming for the child. But always remember that you're not alone in this journey, as there are people out there who are able to help you, who are able to guide you. It's just that you need to hit the right spot. Now, also, you should understand that when you're supporting a neurodivergent child, the way of, the parenting method, the way you approach that child, there needs to be a shift from a traditional parenting method. So, by traditional parenting method is what I'm trying to inculcate that when we were younger or when our parents were younger, so there were ways in which their parents nurtured them, probably having certain strict rules, boundaries that you cannot cross it and you have to follow it. Is their way of handling the child? But when you are having a neurodivergent child in a family, you need to understand that you need to be more open, you need to be more acceptable. One thing, definitely, the word that I'm going to use in this session, it's going to remain throughout. And that important word is the acceptance. So, how acceptable you are when it comes to your child. So, the more accepting and the more adaptive you are with the child is where you're going to create an example and lead an example in terms of the other family members, how they also need to, come together, understand the importance and the need of their role in that particular situation and help the child together. So, of course, parents are the immediate caregivers, but there are other relationships as well, be it the grandparents, be it siblings, or be it the other relatives who are there with the child. And if you are living together, every individual have to then come together and create an environment for the child which is more, I would say, acceptable, first thing, and second thing is how safe the child feels in that environment. So that's where this point is highlighted, where the parenting method needs a shift from a traditional to an adaptive approach. Now, since I've been talking about neurodivergent children. So let us understand what the term neurodivergent means. So here, the term neurodivergent describes people whose brain differences affect how their brain works. So here, there are certain differences in the brain of the neurodivergent child, which is different from that of a typical child. Now, this means that they have different strengths and challenges from people whose brain don't have those differences. Now, of course, a neurodivergent child is the one that with certain brain differences. Now, these brain differences can be in the form of strength and challenges. Now, this I will explain you with an example. Like if a child who's diagnosed with ADHD, more of inattentive and impulsive, and if we take a classroom scenario, so the teacher always the teacher always complains that the child is not able to pay attention in class, is not paying attention while I am teaching in the class, not looking at the board, or is not making an eye-to-eye contact, and is constantly fidgeting, or what they say is in its own world. So that is, of course, because the child is having a challenge, is where the child is having a condition of ADHD where he or she is not able to be attentive in class. So that what we can consider as to be a challenge. Now, if you have to understand what strength could be, is like the same teacher, if when she asks the question to the child that, okay, I see that you're not paying attention. Can you tell me what have I taught so far? So, but the child actually immediately responds to whatever the teacher has taught and exactly explaining the points, which amuses the teacher, or I would say, which mesmerizes her in the fact that for her it was an understanding that he or she seems so distracted, but when she asks the question, the child is able to give the exact correct answer. So then that could be one of the strengths where, despite of not able to pay complete attention, still the child is able to give responses. Their way of adapting, coping up, and also recollecting the information in a way that though they're distracted, but they are there and they're able to understand whatever is being taught in class. Now, these possible strengths that I discussed, it could also be which includes better memory and the ability to solve complex mathematical calculation. Now, differences in terms of any medical disorders or learning disabilities and other conditions. So, if despite the child having challenges with other subjects in class, like probably not good with science, not good with social studies or English, but performs exceptionally well in maths, is what the strength and challenges defines over here. Moving on, now let us understand what is neurodiversity. So it describes the idea that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways. So there is no one right way of thinking, learning, and behaving, and differences are not viewed as deficits. Of course, different minds, different thought process, different way of learning and coping. But here, these differences, what we should not view as is it's not a deficit. Now, if I just have to like compare neurodivergent versus neurodiverse or neurodiversity, so neurodivergent applies to individual whose mind processes, learns, and behaves differently from dominant societal norms. Or in a simple term, I would say neurodivergent is a person. On the other hand, neurodiversity it applies to groups, communities, population, or in other terms, it is a concept. Moving forward, since I discussed about neurodivergent children, now let us understand who are these children who are considered to be as neurodivergent and why are they neurodivergent is because it includes the following. So the children who are diagnosed with certain conditions. And these conditions that I have listed out is categorizing them in terms of the child being a neurodivergent child. So, of which the first one is the autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. The most common one that I'm sure everyone would have come across is the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia. Now, in terms of dyspraxia, so what is dyspraxia? It is also known as developmental coordination disorder. So it basically means that the brain and body have trouble working together smoothly. So, children want to do certain activities, but carrying out those activities is a challenge for them. Now, this could be an example for probably writing, tying a shoelace, or any fine motor skills. The child have troubles performing that. So that is dyspraxia and other learning disabilities. So, children who are diagnosed with these conditions are considered to be in the form of the neurodivergent children. Moving forward, that uh, very important aspect since we talk about family. So, family just does not revolve around parents and the child. There are also other members in the family. So, it could be, as I mentioned, grandparents, it could be siblings, or it could be other relatives who are living together and as a group, of course, because there are different individuals in the family, different individual categorizes in a way that there are different mindsets, there are different perspectives, there are different opinions. At the same time, there would be uh, different decisions that every individual would be making in some or the other individual's life. But let us understand when a family is having a child, a neurodivergent child, what struggles that family would be going through in terms of a parent-child relationship or in terms of uh, a, a mother-daughter relationship or a father-son relationship or a sister and brother relationship, a grandfather and a granddaughter relationship, and things like that. So when the relationship varies with an individual, and understanding the fact that because the child is having a particular condition, the dynamics might not remain the same, because here the load would be like either the parents, the immediate caregivers. Most likely, I would say it would be the mother who would be constantly involved and engaged in the child if the mother is a homemaker. So she's the one who's taking care of the child, and I would I would say that not just only taking care of the child, but also catering to the other responsibility as a mother, as a daughter-in-law, as a wife, as a sister, or various other roles that that mother would be playing. So when that happens, and when you also understand that there must be a lot on her shoulder, and on top of that, when we do understand that olden times people would not even believe or consider that there is something that is called considered as a neurodivergent child, or something which is different in the child, because there was no acceptance at that point in time, or I would say that there was no much awareness. But now, since as the time has changed, there is more awareness. People are talking about it more openly, and also accepting it, is where we know that since you're aware about the facilities that you can get access to, so why not make use of that? So when you know that you are into so much of emotions, there is so much of frustration, there's so much of anxiety, there are so many answers which are, there are so many questions which are not answered, is where you can understand that there is a way that you can come out of it when it comes to in the form of a family. So where when any individual goes through any challenges in their life, of course, you seek a therapist's help. You probably take an individual session, be it for a teenager, be it for an adolescent, be it for a marriage relationship, and things like that. But when you understand the fact that when you're dealing with a neurodivergent child, and when you're dealing with different mindsets in the house, there is something which is also available for you. It's called as the family therapy. So since it's not just you and the child, it's all the members. So it's a collective process. It's not just I or you. It's a collective process. And when that is the need of the hour, we need to understand that how we can seek guidance and how we can seek support. And that's where, family therapy plays a very important role in today's time. And since there's a lot of awareness has also been spread, because parents are now trying to understand and trying to find out ways how they can cope with the children, and they're also making others around them be aware of it, that see, this is not something in a normal circumstance, it is something which is different, and it needs to be handled with a lot of care, with a lot of attention, with a lot of energy and effort. So that's where, a family therapy could be the best way out for every members in the family, because at the end, what everybody wants is that there should be a harmony amongst the family members, and more of that, how acceptable and the environment that you are creating for the people around you also matters the most. So, if we want to understand what is family therapy, so it is a type of treatment designed to help with issues that specifically affects families' mental health and functioning. Now, of course, exhaustion, burnout, the caregiver around the child going through so many, stress. And supposedly, I just spoke about if it is the mother who's a homemaker is looking after the family. Imagine if there is a scenario where both the parents are working, then the child is left alone. Probably it is the grandparents who are, taking care of, or whether the child has a sibling, an elder sibling, then what relationship that child is having with that sibling, and how far are they able to cope up with the child's needs, is where again plays a lot of emotional aspects and certain things which are not having a clearer picture or a clearer answer, is where you can definitely then come out and move forward and seek for a family therapy. So it helps individual family members build stronger relationships, improve communication, and manage conflicts within the family system. Now, if we want to understand what is the primary goal of family therapy, so it is to create better home environment. Definitely very, very important that a home is something that every individual counts on. Even as a grown up, as adults, when you move out, when you go out for work, or when you go for a 9 to 5 job, you leave your house in the morning and then you want to, when it's time for you closer to come back to home, of course, you need an environment so warm and welcoming that whatever that tiredness or things are there because of the workload or any such aspect, it just goes off, vanishes away when the person comes and greets the family or meets the family. So that plays a very important role that how your inner environment is and how suitable it is. So this is not just for the individual. Here, what we have to understand is how this environment is suitable for the child as well. And by child, I mean by the neurodivergent children. So since I won't be taking the term neurodivergent again and again, just consider I'm addressing them. So first is, of course, better home environment, solve family issues, and understand the unique issues that a family might face. Moving forward, so there are different types of family therapy, right? So the first being the family systems therapy. Now, what do we understand by this is it is based on the idea that when one member of the family is struggling, the whole family is affected. So family system therapy is used in a way where even if there is one family member who are having certain challenges, the entire dynamics of the other family members also get equally affected. So that's where it is the family system therapy. Now, if we want to know about the functional family therapy, so what is functional family therapy? So it helps families work better together. So instead of blaming the person for the problem, it focuses on improving how family members communicate, support each other, and solve challenges as a. The next being the narrative family therapy. So it is based on the idea that people are not the problem, but the problem is the problem. All right, every time if there is something wrong with any individual, if there is a different mindset or a perspective, we always blame the person. But here, with the help of narrative family therapy, it focuses more on the problem being the problem and not on the person who's having the problem. Moving forward is the next one, which is psychoeducation. So psychoeducation helps people understand what they are experiencing and also teaches various practical ways in order to manage or handle it. The last being the supportive family therapy. So it helps family members become a source of strength for one another. Of course, as I mentioned, that how every individual in the family has a role to play. Similarly, when a supportive family therapy is used, it is to bring forward that every individual supports one another, be it a good thing, be it a bad thing, or be it like there are certain challenges that are there. How, as a family, you all can come together and help that individual come out of it in terms of showing that support, showing that love, showing that confidence in that person that you have someone whom you can count on, and that is the family. Let's move forward. So, why family matters? Of course, I don't think so that I have to go deep down into it. I'm sure as individual, everybody knows the value of the family and what is the family's role in today's time. Or I would say that how family has always been a crucial part of every individual's life because anything that happens in life or whatever good things, bad things, ups and downs, all that we have that satisfaction within ourselves is that I have a family, I can go to them, I can talk to them, I can tell them how I'm feeling, how my day was. Today was a good day, today was a bad day, I felt so miserable, I felt so amazing. So all these things is what whom you can immediately go and address is your family. So, what is the family's role over here? First, it is the primary source of support. Primary, or I would say the only source of support, who accepts you first thing the way you are, and also very important that how they are the one who does not, uh, try to question you instantly. I would say, of course, they do have the certain boundaries, or they do have certain expectations from the person, but always they be more welcoming, they be more open, or I would say they are a very non-judgmental individual in today's time. Is where where a person can come forward and express their views openly. So they're the only source of support. I would say that if individuals who are not able to have that communication with them, or there's no bond which is created, that's when it becomes very difficult in order to even share whatever you are going through. So that's the first and most important role of a family, is that it's the primary source of support. Second is it shapes emotional development. Now, in a sense, like an individual who is having a certain ups and downs, they are at least coming forward, whatever bond they share with any member in the family, be it a mother-daughter relationship, or be it a father-son relationship, be it a granddaughter or a grandmother relationship, or a sister-brother relationship. So how you're able to express your emotions openly, and how through their understanding and perspective, you're also getting a clearer picture of when probably they had when they passed their time, when they had certain ups and downs, how they managed their emotions. And that's why when you hear from your family, hear from the elderly, that this is how they also pass this phase of life, and they overcome it, is when you again try to learn, again try to analyze, and you try to channelize your emotions in the correct direction. The last being the influence, coping, and resilience. Now, going one by one. So, influence. So, families are the child's first teachers and strongest support system. So, the way family members communicate, respond to challenges, and express emotions influences how children understand themselves and the world around them in the form of coping. So it is how family manages stress, challenges, and difficult emotions. So there are healthy ways of coping. Helps family members work together, communicate effectively, and find solutions instead of becoming overwhelmed. In terms of resilience, it is the ability to adapt, recover, and grow through life's challenges. Families build resilience by supporting one another, celebrating strengths, and maintaining hope even during difficult times. Let's move forward. Now, challenges that families may face. So here, what I am mostly going to look into in terms of the challenges that families may face when dealing with the neurodivergent children. So first and most important is the communication. So when you're dealing with a child, with a neurodivergent child, or whether the child is having autism spectrum disorder or ADHD, what becomes difficult over here is that you're not able to first understand the child's perspective, or what the child is trying to communicate, or whether they are able to communicate or explain you or express better what they are going through. On the other hand, how parents are trying to cope up with the child, and also cope up with other members in the family. So that way, it creates a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of miscommunication that happens, and that leads to a lot of conflicts, and it increases frustration within the family. So that is what I mean by the communication difficulties. Next, what I want to highlight on is parenting stress. Now, again, parents, as I told you, they are the immediate caregiver. So the amount of stress that goes up to whether if both parents are working parents, so you can understand the kind of stress that they must be handling, because they are not just only catering to the child's needs, but they also have to look after the work demands that are there, that they have to move out, and if they have certain commitments and responsibilities that they have to fulfill. On the other hand, if it is I would say a homemaker, a mother, so she's the immediate caregiver to that child. Imagine that she's spending her entire day with the child, trying to understand and manage the child's needs and things like that. So it becomes very, I would say, frustrating for that person in order to, because there is no other way where she can go express herself, and also because she's having that struggle, that why she not able to understand that why the child is acting differently, or why is my child different from my other child. So that conflict, constant conflict, and then of course answering to questions of various other people, that why is your child so different, why it's like this, and things like this will definitely create a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress in that individual's life. So sibling concerns, of course, a very important thing, that when a family are having two children, of which one is the neurodivergent child, how that can have an impact on the sibling relationship as well. Is first is, since the parents are having equal responsibilities for both of their child, but the focus deviates more on the neurodivergent child, is because they feel that that is the need of the hour at the moment, considering the fact that the second child being fine is able to cope up, is able to manage things on their own. And that's where the neglect starts coming in. And probably the sibling might have an understanding that my parents don't love me as much as how they love my brother, or how they love my sister. Or in terms of that, when the child starts getting more attached to the other members in the family, and then that might lead to a lot of miscommunication, misinterpretation. Again, is kind of bringing a disbalance in the family's harmony. The social stigma. So as we understand that, it is very difficult for, the parents of a neurodivergent child to come forward and accept when it comes in the societal aspect, because of course they are having that fear, or they are having that understanding that the child would be labeled in the society as someone with ADHD, or someone with autism spectrum disorder and learning disability and things like that, and how that becomes difficult for them. But at this point in time, what I would really want to highlight is that how acceptable once you start becoming is where it also changes the perspective, or the way when society starts looking at it is also going to be very different. So that's where I always emphasize here is acceptance is the key to all such answers, or all such questions that are going to be asked. But when it comes to society, of course, because in our olden times there were no there was no awareness, and probably people might be having this condition. Of course, it's not something that they might not have. The only thing is there was no way of diagnosing it, or identifying it. But thanks to the time that has changed, and how we have come up with various tools in order to understand. And the earlier you understand that there are certain challenges with the child, the better you can help the child, and not just helping the child, but also ways you can cope with it, and how you can, help that child, and what ways or strategies you need to understand in order to move forward and deal with the child. And then the last is the emotional burnout. So I think it's that
Arva,
is
can I just
very,
interrupt for a minute? A
yes, ma'am.
lot of people are saying that your voice is not very clear. Uh,
Oh, okay.
so maybe you can turn off your camera and then see.
Okay, sure, ma'am, sure,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Satyavati, Veena, please let us know once she turns off her camera if her voice is better. Yes, Arva. Please continue.
Uh, yes. One second, ma'am. Ma'am, I'll do one thing. I'll just remove my earpods and see if it is better.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see.
Hello.
It's much better now, I think, Arva.
Is it better, ma'am?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Sure. Fine, ma'am. Anyways, I've turned off my camera. If there's anything, ma'am, just let.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm so sorry about I didn't realize that my voice was not clear. I hope it is better now. All right, so I was coming to the emotional burnout. As I was saying, that it's pretty self-explanatory, because when you know that you're catering to a neurodivergent child, and there's a lot of energy, the time that is invested, and that leads to a lot of, your emotion being within yourself, and there's no space where you can, come forward and talk about it, because again, it also depends on how and when or where to go, to whom to talk about this. How are they going to have an understanding of it? Is it going to be the same as what you feel, or is it going to be different? Is it someone going to judge you for this, or things like that? And then because of which you try to keep a lot of things to yourself, and which leads to, at the end, is the emotional burnout. All right, moving forward. So now, understanding your neurodivergent child's unique needs, right? So before we understand the unique needs of the neurodivergent children, let us understand the areas that are often addressed. Now, first is the emotional regulation. Now, emotional regulation is basically where a neurodivergent children, of course, as I said, not aware about what sort of, if a child is much younger, is not aware about that he or she is having a particular condition. So maybe if the child is diagnosed with ADHD, and if it is a child, if a child is an 8 or a 9-year-old child, very difficult for him or her to identify that. Probably because they're still struggling as to how to, express their emotions, and also to understand that there is something different in them versus of other children who are different, of course. So for them, they consider the others to be different. Likewise, it goes when they are categorized, or they are having a condition, so they are categorized to be a different child. So in this aspect, when we understand in terms of the emotional regulation, since they're not able to express it openly, here what, as parents or as family, that we need to understand is that how we can validate their emotion, first thing. Second thing is that how we can make them understand that how they can name their emotions. So probably, of course, it is difficult for them to name certain words, that today I am very low, or some certain things like that. For them, the way that they communicate is, I don't feel good. So it is, of course, difficult for us to understand that what is that good. So what we can do, as parents, as guardians, is like how we can help them name that particular emotion. Okay, today you are feeling this way, what would you think of it? So some neurodivergent children experience emotion more intensively, or have difficulty. Now, difficulty in terms of identifying and expressing their feelings, that's what I said, and coping with frustration or unexpected changes, transitioning between activities. So this may lead to certain meltdowns, anxiety, or impulsive behavior, not because the child is being difficult, but because they are struggling to manage overwhelming emotions. As I said, that since they're not able to identify that what is going through them, is where it leads to a meltdown for them. The next we move forward is the sensory sensitivities. Now, what do we understand by sensory sensitivities is like there are certain child who get comfortable with certain sensory aspects, or with certain strong senses, which could either comfort them, or which could also create a disturbance or discomfortness. Now, if we understand in terms of comfortness, so there would be certain children who would always constantly require a touch. Probably either they would want to have a soft toy, or a favorite jacket of theirs, which gives that comfortness on their skin. On the other hand, certain factors would trigger them, in the sense like, if the light is too bright, if the color is something which is hitting on their eye, it kind of creates a lot of discomfortness in them. The next being the social communication. So it is difficult for children to understand the unwritten rules of the society, which comes naturally to others. Now, since here what major challenges the child faces, like how to initiate a conversation or how to communicate, because that is something which they are struggling with and which does not come to them naturally, is also because they are dealing with the challenges within themselves and are struggling in order to identify what they are going through. So when that happens, they're not able to participate as much in the form of the social communication. They do not have enough friends. That is also because they're not able to express or communicate with them, verbalize what they are going through and things like that, and are often left out. Now, moving forward to the routine changes. So here, what happens that with the neurodivergent child, always we need to understand that there are certain routine that when they start following it, and if there seems to be any changes in that particular routine or the order of the routine, it creates a lot of disturbance in the child and a sense of frustration and anxiety comes in to them, because the way it is supposed to be done, it's not happening, is where it starts affecting them. The last is the self-esteem. So why is it important? Is because here for a neurodivergent child, since they are not getting answers to the questions that what challenges that they are going through, or because it is too early for them to identify that they are having a particular condition at that point in time, so that also kind of hampers the self-esteem. So since because you're not able to maintain your peer relationship and not able to express your opinion or express your emotions openly or loudly, so that's where the kind of the consciousness that they start looking themselves in a way that they are always afraid to express whatever they are feeling, because they're constantly having this fear of what other people are going to think about them. So that is what is about the areas that are often addressed. Now, understanding the unique need, let's move forward. So here is the first point, which is creating a supportive home environment for the child. So I think, as I've discussed it earlier also, so when you are catering with a neurodivergent child, it is very important that you are equally giving the child a supportive home environment where the child is on its own, is able to express what he or she is going through, and is not being judged, is not being questioned, or is not being corrected. Lot of times we've seen that that is also because the parents are not having that particular understanding that when the child makes a mistake, the first thing is what we are pointing on that mistakes, we are always correcting them. So that is one thing, again, we need to understand that correction, of course, it needs to be done, but more of how we can look at in terms of what strength that they are having, and how we can praise them through that is also very important for the child. Now, communication strategies when supporting your child. Of course, because knowingly, unknowingly, if the child tends to make certain mistakes, that is also because of the condition. So, if a child who's very impulsive might be all around more into physical activities, and because of that, might not able to channelize their energy in a correct way. So when any mistakes happen with them, or as a family, we need to understand and we need to be very mindful of our words when especially you're addressing it to your child, is uh, because that is something what they pick up first. So if it is any negative comment, it is highlighted the first in their mind and in in an overall picture, rather than looking into the positive aspect. So how you are communicating with the child also plays a very important role. So instead of blaming them, or instead of always saying that you are like this only, how we can change that pattern in terms of like, okay, I see that you are behaving this way, what can we do further in order to help you in a way that you're not doing certain things, like that. Statements like this, where you also seek their validation, brings a lot of satisfaction within the child. Managing emotional regulation and supporting your child, of course, because if the child is not able to express their emotions, is where we need to understand that how we can regulate those emotions, or how we can help them name those emotions in order to give them that space where they are able to express it in their own ways. Building your child's strengths and self-esteem. Definitely, flaws are there, pros are there, cons are there, of course. But how? Let's highlight the child's strength in order to boost their self-esteem, and activities that they're really good at and they excel well. Let's help the child encourage more, or help them participate more into such activities in order to just boost their spirit and boost up their self-esteem. Self-care for parents supporting neurodivergent children. As I always have been mentioning and will continue mentioning, that since parents play a very crucial role over here, it is very important for you all also to understand that when it is time to seek help, there are sources, there are ways where you can come forward. And it is not that since you are catering to a neurodivergent child, which means all the ways of how to handle that child. Of course it's not possible, because you are also growing with with that child in a way where probably it is completely different from what you would have gone through in your childhood. So that's where, when there is any doubts, any things where you just stops you, you should always come forward and try to seek help in order to, not just for your own self, but also in a way where you can support your child. Now, let's look at the benefits of family therapy. So, family therapy, the benefits are into three aspects. So, for the child, how the family therapy is benefited. First is that increased emotional security. Of course, when you provide that space to the child where the child is able to express its emotion and its needs, it increases the kind of security within them, where they feel that, yeah, this is my safe space and I am allowed to feel the way I am supposed to, and there will be no one who's going to judge me or who's going to tell me anything. And better self-expression, improved coping skills. Now, for parents, what are the benefits of family therapy? First is reduce stress. As I said, that when you're catering to with a neurodivergent child, there's a lot of stress that the parents grow. It's not just only handling the child, but it is also the way they are handling the other family dynamics as well. So the family therapy would help for parents in terms of reducing stress. Greater confidence in the sense, like, where the parents are more acceptable, more approachable, in order to understand the unique needs of the child, and understanding the child being um, b- different, but not in terms of being biased or things like that. So it kind of inculcates a confidence within them, and to boost it out in a way where they can help the child in order to help them grow better, and better understanding of needs. For siblings, how this is effective is it improves relationships, of course, and increase empathy. So when the child understands that his brother or his sister is different in a way, and when he or she relates to that well, is where there is an increased sense of empathy, where she can understand that how she as a sister can also help her sibling. Now, what are the various challenges faced by families? Caregiver burnout. I think I've explained this earlier also, that it brings a lot of frustration within the self, and there's a lot of emotional burnout when you're catering to the neurodivergent child, and that might have an impact on the other relationships in the families as well. Increased amount of stress, emotional regulation difficulties, sibling concerns, and social isolation. Now, why family therapy matters? So first is it's the for the better emotional outcomes. Of course, family therapy definitely helps in order to channelize your emotion and regulate it better. Helps in improving communication. So since when you undergo family therapy, there are various ways you understand various strategies that you learn in order to how you are supposed to have a communication with the person in that particular situation or scenario. And then it reduces family stress. So why family therapy matters? So it reduces family stress as well, and greater parental confidence. Now, moving on to the family-based interventions. So first being the emotion coaching. So what is emotion coaching? It means it helps children make sense of big feelings. So acknowledge their emotions, help them name what they are feeling, and guide them towards better and healthy ways of coping. Visual supports. So visual supports are they're like road signs for the brain. So they help children know what to expect, what to do next, and how to express their needs, making everyday tasks more predictable and less overwhelming. So visual supports, again, as I said, there are certain structure which the child needs to follow, but they function better when it is like a roadmap for them. The collaborative problem solving. So collaborative problem solving means moving from I'm going to solve this problem for you to let's figure this out together. So that's why the word is collaborative. So it recognizes that children do well when they can, and when they struggle, they need support and skills, but not blame. Now, if we look collaborative problem solving into three steps, the first being the empathy, which is understanding the child's perspective. Second is define the concern, so where you are sharing the adult's concern. So what you are having any opinions, you're trying to share that. And invite solutions is where you work together to find a solution for the particular problem. Next is positive reinforcement. So it focuses on what children are doing right and encouraging those behaviors through praise, attention, or rewards. Instead of only correcting mistakes, we intentionally notice and strengthen positive efforts. So children work better when they are, praised for any acts that they do, be it small or be it big. The moment you praise them or you give a reward for that particular activity, again it boosts their confidence and their self-esteem. And with motivation, the more a motivation that you are trying to inculcate in the child, it in the neurodivergent child, it helps them work and perform better. Sensory accommodation. So some neurodivergent children need sensory support to feel comfortable and focused, as it helps them reduce stress and make everyday experiences more manageable. And the last is the structured routines. So as I mentioned earlier also, they are like a roadmap for the day. They help children understand what comes next, reducing uncertainty and making daily tasks easier to manage. All right. So as we're coming close to our coming closer to the end of our presentation, so strengthening parent-child relationships. First is connection precedes correction. So as I said, more than you having an understanding of correcting the child's behavior, how well are you connected with the child in order to understand and make the child understand that what ways you all can work together in order to resolve a particular problem. And quality time, of course, very, very, very important that when you're having a neurodivergent child in the family, how every members of the family are equally involved and are spending time, which of course I will not deny the fact that in today's time it is difficult, especially for the families where all members in the family are working probably, but somewhere if you are in that 24 hours of the day, if you're gaining some time out and trying to spend with the child, it makes a lot of difference in the child's life as well. Active listening, by that I mean, is where you are hearing what the child is wanting to say or have to say. So basically, active listening is where you are listening to their perspective without having a judgment towards it, or without having any questions for that. You're just there and you're hearing them out to whatever they are trying to explain them. And positive interactions, again, it makes a lot of difference the way you make statements, or do you try to converse with a child, also have an impact and enhance the relationship between the children and the family members. Now, since I did describe about the role of the family in the neurodiversity, and understanding the neurodivergent children, and how the family members faces certain challenges, what are the strategies that they can look forward to. So here I'm going to give two case examples, of which one is the autism spectrum disorder. So here, Ayan, who's an 8-year-old, was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. He became distressed when routines changed and often had emotional outbursts at home. His parents felt overwhelmed and his younger sister felt excluded. So this is the case scenario. Now let us break it into, like, what could be the family challenges over here. So first is the frequent misunderstandings during communication, increased parental stress, siblings' feeling of jealousy and confusion, difficulty managing transitions, and unexpected changes. So I think these, I have also explained it in my previous slides as well, that these are the challenges when a child is catering with a when family is catering with a neurodivergent child. Now, what could be the family therapy intervention? So first is psychoeducation about autism, creating predictable family routines, teaching family members communication strategies, encouraging sibling involvement through structured activities. Now, what could be the outcome for this? First is reduced emotional outbursts, improve sibling relationship, greater understanding and acceptance within the family. Now, case two is where I have highlighted about the ADHD. So Ria, 10 years old, had ADHD and struggled with impulsivity, forgetfulness, and completing tasks. Daily homework and morning routines often led to family conflicts. Now, what could be the family challenges here? It's the constant arguments around responsibilities, parents feeling frustrated and exhausted, Ria feeling criticized and misunderstood. The interventions could be identifying strengths rather than focusing solely on difficulties, developing visual schedules and reward systems, teaching positive communication techniques, helping parents use consistent expectations and responses. The outcome of this could be reduce family conflict, improve routines and organization, enhance self esteem for Ria, better parent child relationships. So as am about to conclude my session, so the key takeaways from the session that I would like to take, that I would like everyone to take from here is acceptance before change. As I said, the word acceptance throughout my presentation is very important. So here, the more acceptable and open you are, it brings a lot of difference in the child's life as well. So acceptance before change is the first, understanding before judgment. As parents, as family, I think no one would want that we are being judged by our acts or things, because when that comes from a family, it hits back in a very different way. So the only thing that we as individuals expect from our family is that understanding that they should have for us. Connection before correction, and collaboration before control. Collaboration, as I said, when everyone come together, is where we create a better world, and we do make a difference in every individual's life. So here I conclude my presentation with this statement that when families grow, children flourish. Thank you very much. And with this, I am done presenting. The forum is now open for questions. So in case if you all have any doubts, you all can either put it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and answer.
Any questions? Initially, I think, Arva, in the chat box, there was a question. When you had spoken about uh, neurodivergent and you had children and you had put out a list, you spoke of ASD, ADHD, and all of that. At that time, somebody asked, Geeta asked, does this include also OCD? Would you want to answer that question, Arva?
Sure, ma'am. OCD, I would say not. It could be, but I'm not sure how much of it could completely be considered into a neurodivergent aspect. But most of it that we highlight is the one which is with the autism spectrum, with the ADHD, that we also come across often in our day-to-day life and into schools and other setups as well. OCD, again, it is a condition which later requires further intervention in terms of the therapeutical aspect.
Yeah. There's one question. Sangeeta says, sometimes the need to spend more time with a neurodivergent child sets off a different impression in the sibling of being ignored. How to address this properly?
Thank you for asking that question. So, as I mentioned, that of course the need of the hour becomes more when you're catering to a neurodivergent child, and that leads for the other sibling to have a sense of ignorance or have an understanding that probably my parents are only towards my elder brother and not thinking about me, is where at that point in time, if you try to make them understand, it's difficult because they're already in that mindset or in that frame where you know that you are already going through a challenge your own ways. But a better way of approaching that would be when you sit with the child and when you try to make them understand that why you are trying to be more focused on the child who's having challenges, and how you are helping that child, and how through their support they can also help that child. So the more involvement also when you bring of a sibling, because at the end of the day they are also a part of the family, right? So for them, thinking that being neglected is a very natural thing because they're seeing right in front of their eyes. And for children, all these observation, they are very picky on it. But how we can make them understand and give them the scenario that why that is happening more, and how you can seek their help. So when you try to, and like, why don't you also help me, helping your brother do this activity or do that activity, and when you seek in their involvement is also give them a sense of satisfaction that they are being valued. I
Thank you
hope
for
I was able to answer that question.
yes. Thank you for that, Arva. Two more questions. One, Soma Narayanan says, family support is very important, as you said. In case if you can't support family, what is the alternative?
Ma'am, I'm so sorry. I was not able to hear you clearly.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Soma Narayanan says that family support is very, very important. But in case you can't get support from the family or you can't give support to the family, is there any other alternative that is possible?
Yes. So, as I said, that it's not that always you're able to get the support within the family. What other ways could be where you can look out for resources, or you can look out for help. That's where, when we identify that there are certain challenges which we're going through, which we are not able to cater to deal with it, nor are the other members in the family able to help, it is where we move forward and we look for the help in terms of the better person who can give us that guideline and who can help us bring that change and bring that difference. So that's where, when family therapy, as I mentioned, of course it is for the family, but how about the individual therapy that we, go forward, or where there are questions that needs to be answered, and that people around might not be the correct person to answer them, is where you can seek help from people outside. So it could be your therapist, it could be your counselor whom you can, connect with.
Yeah, and added to that, you can also strengthen the child himself or herself. So, community support is one, looking for external resources is another, and the third one is to strengthen the child or the sibling connection and see if they can be, incorporated into the intervention program. Yeah, thank you for that, Arva. Shivapriya has a question.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
is the starting point for family therapy? Does the child need to be involved? And how old does the child have to be?
All right. So the starting point of the family therapy again depend upon, like, suppose if it's an 8-year-old child or a 9-year-old child who's I would say, just giving an example, like having an ADHD related concerns. So that point in time, it is difficult in the beginning to bring in the child. Is first where we have an understanding from the parents or from the other caregivers how they are helping the child, and having understanding of that. So we understand, as I said, we try understanding the perspectives of every individual in that family, is where when we gather that information, and when we feel that what is the child's perspective, is we can also ask the child if he or she is able to help us with any information. So it could be, so if it's a very young child, so it is not that the child is able to express through communication, but in various other aspects, like in the form of play therapy, if we are able to identify certain emotions, certain hidden emotions, then we can do that as well.
Yeah, just to add to that, Shivapriya, two things. One, in family therapy, the understanding is sometimes the child is the index of the family. What that really means is oftentimes there can be certain underlying currents in the family, and members of the family tend to hide behind a neurodivergent child and say all our problems are because of this child, and if this child gets better, then our problems will go away. But in effect, there are a lot of things like, I was talking about the family systems theory, the functionality, the interconnectivity, the communication between family members. There can already be a strain. And with the presence of a neurodivergent child, that can blow up in the face. And, so that is one clear indication where family therapy would be required, where they're using the fact that there is a neurodivergent child in the family and saying all our problems are because of that. The second thing that can happen is that, like despite the best efforts, one provides all the inputs for a child and the child is still not improving. That's a clear red flag, because there might be something in the family that is maintaining this behavior. For example, if there is a child who is having a lot of temper tantrums and anger outbursts, and the anger outbursts are worsening, despite the fact that the child who had ADHD, and now we worked on the impulse control and then the impulsivity, and all of that is better, but still the temper tantrums are not coming down, then there might be something in the family that is maintaining this behavior. So oftentimes we then use family therapy to help put all of this together, to see what are the things within the family that are helping to maintain this behavior of the child, which we call as dysfunctional or inappropriate behavior. And then we work on the family as a whole, and then see if that maintaining factor can be mitigated. So the next part of the question: how old does the child have to be included in family therapy? Usually for such processes, because there is a lot of communication that is required, we expect the child to be slightly older. Very young children, family therapy may not be possible. But having said that, there are a number of examples where maybe if the child is intelligent enough, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, we have had participate in family therapy. So I hope that answers your question. Um, Shambhavi has a question, Arwa. I- Thank you, ma'am. Cases presented and the intervention plan helped us. Can you give some kind of links of supportive groups for parents of neurodivergent children?
Ma'am, links as in like the foundations or in that
Yes,
aspect?
groups.
Group. So like basically you can look up on the Ummeed Child Development Center, so which is one of India's leading child development centers. Then you have Society for the Autistics in India, Apurva Center for Autism. Then you have Approach Autism Society, Spectrum Delight, Rainbow of Life. So there are a lot. So probably I can maybe write them down and also share it with you.
Thank you for that, Arwa. Any other questions? Okay, I think that's it. It's time for us to wrap up. Arwa, do you want to uh, give us your final uh, wrap
Sure,
up?
ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being such a wonderful audience. And it was really a wonderful opportunity that I got today that I was able to present this. And if I was of in any help and able to guide you all in ways of dealing or how to deal with your, neurodivergent child and how you all can probably guide or, help others in terms of what could be done and what is best done. And I think before I conclude, I just want to say that it is not the child who's different, but it is the mindset that matters. So, as a different mindset plays a very important role. So, that's what I want to leave you all with. And thank you once again, everyone, for your participation. And our next month GreyMatter series webinar would be happening on the last month of the Friday. So that would be on the 31st of July. And the details of the topic and everything shall be shared and communicated through our communication platform. So thank you once again. And I hope every one of you all have a wonderful weekend ahead.